Hello and welcome to day 2 of Tellycast live from the Palais. We're broadcasting live from Cannes, meeting the movers and shakers of the international TV industry at mipcom, the world's biggest content market, this year celebrating its 40th anniversary. Today we'll be joined by guests including Evan Shapiro, Sharon Levi from Yes Studios and Julie Meldal-Johnson from ITV Studios for live interviews and panel sessions as we discuss the key talking points and the hottest shows hitting the market. Thank you to mipcom and our sponsors ITV Studios and Shooting in Spain, a brand of ISEX Invest in Spain, for making the show possible. If you're here in Cannes or watching wherever you are in the world, welcome to Tellycast live from the Palais. We'd love you to get involved too. Make sure you hit subscribe or follow and get in touch in the comments. First up on today's show, Sharon Levi from Yes Studios. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Justin.
Welcome to Tellycast live from the Palais. It's great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
And we were meant to see each other a year ago, but obviously, traveling from Israel has been a little bit more difficult, hasn't it, in recent months?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah.
We had our plans, we had everything set up, meetings were in place, and then obviously October 7th happened. A whole world kind of went upside down. And of course, we had to cancel our trips, and we needed to kind of reset ourselves for a bit. But now we're back.
Yeah.
We're back. The war's still going on. But we're trying to take a breath and be back in the market with new exciting projects. And, work is a blessing right now. And just to be a little bit distracted from the news at home.
Of course,
yeah.
Of course. And you got here, there's I think one flight a day or a week or something like that, isn't there?
The only airline that's flying right now is the Israeli Airlines El Al. So, we have to accommodate according to that. But at least we were able to find the right flights and get here. And we're here for the Monday and the Tuesday, back-to-back meetings. The whole Israeli industry was on that flight. So,
right.
Good that we got here safely.
Yeah, well, great to see you.
Thank
Very
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
So you've been behind some really successful global series recently, Fauda, Shtisel and Your Honor being 3 of those. They've really resonated locally and globally as well. What do you think the key is to that? What's helped you develop those such successful series that have gone on all around the world?
Well, I think, they're all very different, obviously, and they each tell a very different story. But I think at the end of the day, people can identify with a lot of the characters that we're showing on these series. People are interested and intrigued by stories that we're telling. Fauda is a very specific show about a very specific conflict between, the Israelis and the Palestinians, but it's told through the eyes of very colorful and interesting characters. And I think at the end of the day, you're on the edge of your seat and you're watching it just like any other crime, thriller, adventure, suspense drama that you're watching, and you're rooting for them, and you have your favorite characters. And I think people are really engaged in the storytelling. And Shtisel, on the other hand, is giving you an inside look about, the Orthodox religious community living in Jerusalem. How many chances do you have to kind of have a very unique look into, these types of traditions and these types of characters that you would never learn about otherwise? But it's also told from a very kind of humoristic standpoint, and they have their own kind of genre of the way that they're speaking to each other, and it's kind of like watching a telenovela. Like, you want to know what's going to happen with your favorite character in the next episode. And then Your Honor is a universe, just to name a few examples, as you said, Your Honor has a very universal premise. And I think when you have an idea that you can explain simply to anyone really, and that can resonate internationally, then people get it instantly. Like, for Your Honor, it's quite simple. It's how far are you willing to go in order to save your own son? And that's a moral question that parents all over the world probably need to answer that. And you're going to get different types of answers from different types of cultures and people. And I think with that, being an honorable judge and to cross the lines of legal and what's not legal and a lot of gray areas in between, I think that's something that a lot of people can, relate to, and it goes on. And we try to tell compelling stories with everything that, we bring to the international marketplace. If it's big or small, doesn't matter. The language doesn't matter. I think if it's a compelling story, and now more and more people are getting accustomed to, if it's reading subtitles or in some countries dubbing, they can still connect to the storytelling and to the characters very much so.
Yeah. So tell us about Yes Studios then. I mean, yeah, I know that you're not just focused on high-end drama. You work in documentary and lots of other genres as well. Just tell us a little bit about the
Well,
business.
Yes Studios, yeah, primarily we're the distribution arm that represents a lot of Israeli content coming out of our parent company, Yes, which is the largest streaming service in Israel right now. Started as a satellite company. And yes, we're doing premium drama and comedy. We're also representing documentary series, documentary features right now. And I think this is just a little passion of mine that, you know, you kind of watch a documentary, really fall in love with it. You think it should start traveling because you think people would really connect to it. And, you know, you go up to the producers and say, hey, you know, it's not my specialty, but I love the project. I would be honored to represent it. So we're doing a lot of those as well. We're also getting more and more involved in co-productions right now, finding partners for projects that we have in development, bringing them on board. So we're collaborating with producers and other distributors and private financing companies and private investors in general that are interested in coming on board very early. And then we try to also make sure that there's a little bit of other foreign languages involved apart from Hebrew, or some of them may be shot in other locations. So, you know, we're primarily distributing and raising money for projects. You know, we're selling a lot of formats for adaptations. We're selling a lot of tape. And I think, you know, we're walking around MIP and talking to so many people in such a small period of time. You hear pretty much the same thing from everyone, is that people are trying to find creative ways to save money on production.
Yeah.
And without that affecting, you know, the quality of your product. And that's really important. And I think when you, obviously if you acquire a tape, that's easy, you have a slot filled. If you adapt the format, that's also easy because it's a proven track record show. You have access to all the scripts and all the materials. And it takes a shorter period of time to adapt a format than it would to create something from scratch. And it's also, it saves time, it saves money. And we're seeing it all the time. People are coming to us, and we're talking to people about formats and different types of genres. Like you were saying, it could be a romantic comedy, it could be a family entertainment format, it could be a crime thriller, it could be suspense. Whatever the genre is, we probably have it, and we'll be able to cater. And I think it requires us to be very flexible in our business making, which we are. Being a small boutique company, we have the ability to be very flexible and kind of cater to our clients' needs anywhere in the world, really.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We had Guy Bisson on from Ampere Analysis on the show yesterday. He was, you know, talking about there's been a real drop in commissioning, and we were also actually speaking to Andy Fry from MIPCom News, and he was saying about the trend for, you know, de-risking really when it comes to broadcasters. And I guess if you're a distribution company with formats, then that always puts you in quite a favourable position, actually, isn't it? When you've got, you know, a proven format, proven track record, it's, you know, it's going to be much more attractive to a broadcaster than taking a big risk.
That is true. And let me tell you a secret. I think broadcasters around the world are always very risk averse. They've always been. I mean, rarely do I find a broadcaster that is willing to take chances and just go blindly on something that, you know, doesn't have any track record.
They don't want to lose the job,
doesn't
right?
Have a big writer attached, or
Yeah.
doesn't have a big name attached. I mean, they're very risk averse, and that's something that we've known, I guess, forever and ever. And you kind of work your way into that. And you know, and I think, and you're right. I think when they talk about something that is an established IP, something that already aired somewhere, something that has maybe ratings and some data about it.
And maybe some prior knowledge with the audience. You know, maybe the audience
reviews.
remembered it from 6-7 years ago. It's going to be you know, less of a risk to bring something back that's established.
Yeah, and you see a lot of reboots.
Yeah.
And a lot of favorite shows that are coming back, and remakes of favorite shows that are coming back again.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot in the UK actually at the moment. Yeah.
So there you go. I just think people like to be comforted, and you know, I think sometimes people live in places where, regardless of what the status is right now in Israel, I think a lot of people have difficult realities that they're living in right now. And for them, content it needs to be something comforting, something that's a no-brainer for them, something that they don't need to think about too much. And, you know, Friends, Seinfeld are always going to be aired somewhere in the world at every given moment, probably as we speak. And that's always these types of shows that you like to come back to again and again and again, you know. How I Met Your Mother or Sex and the City or all these classic shows from years before are always going to be a success. And people, I think, are looking to be comforted. People are looking to escape reality a lot of times.
Yeah.
And watching shows that you're familiar with or sound familiar or remember from your childhood is always a good way to go about that. And I think when you take a format, even a format that's like 10 or 20 years old, and you remember it fondly from before, and then you give it a new life, you know, give it another spin or another take on it, and you kind of remake it into your own culture. It looks familiar, but it has a new packaging. And there you go. And you have a new show for less of the costs and less of the time invested. And I think it's a win-win situation, really, for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're presumably busy back to back, or during the time that you're here. I mean, tell us about what new content that you're bringing to the market right now.
Sure. Actually, a documentary series that we just launched in Israel on Yes, called The Lost City, 101 Days in Captivity. This is a joint venture that we've done with Anane Studios, which is a part of Paramount. And it tells the true story of 8 travelers that went on a trek 20 years ago in Colombia to the Lost City, and they were kidnapped by one of the terrorist organizations that ruled Colombia at the time, part of the cartel called the ELN. And they were kidnapped, and they tell the whole story. And now, 20 years later, the Israelis want to confront the person who was in charge of that kidnapping. He was released from prison recently, and they have a meeting with him. They meet with him face to face, basically to try and tie the knot, because you can obviously see that they're post-traumatic from this experience. They were treated in a certain way. Part of the travelers included a German woman. She was the only woman there. She went through traumatic time during that kidnapping. And there was another Spanish person there and 2 British people. One of them managed to escape and run away. He refused to take part in the production. I guess the trauma was just too difficult for him. But it's a compelling story about trying to come full circle and to stand in front of the kidnapper or the person that was responsible for this kidnapping and just ask, why us?
Yeah.
And this whole drama takes place in Colombia. It speaks Spanish, it speaks English, it speaks Hebrew, of course. And we're very excited to bring it out. I think the timing is interesting, given the fact that we still have 101 hostages in Gaza that we're trying to free in any way possible. And telling a story of a kidnapping that occurred 20 years ago that does have some sort of a happy ending, because obviously they were released. It can give hope to people, I feel. Yeah. That's a big one for us. And then, we're very happy to announce that Deadline has chosen our latest premium drama, Night Therapy, to be one to watch at here at MIPCom. It's an amazing drama series that just recently finished airing in Israel with great success. We've already announced season 2 that's been commissioned. And it tells the story of an Arab-Israeli psychologist that recently loses his wife. She's committed suicide. She suffered from depression. And he finds himself trying to juggle his life, with, raising his 2 children on his own, being a single dad. So he chooses, a spur of the moment, to kind of move his office hours, his clinic hours, to the hours of the night. His sister comes in to help him with the children, and what we find is these interesting night creatures coming in for therapy at these crazy hours at midnight or 2 a.m. And these colorful creatures, these colorful patients bring in to life these amazing stories that they tell in the clinic. And the unique format element here is, while they're telling their story and their issues to the therapist, we kind of flash back to the actual scene that they're talking about, and our therapist is as if he's there watching from the sidelines, as if he's part of the scene. And it's a beautiful moment in their therapy session, and you see the process that he's going with his patients. And also, you have the story of him trying to deal with his 2 kids, acting up in school and everything that has to do with that. It was created by Ra'anan Shaked. It was produced by the wonderful 8 Productions. And we're already starting, because it's such a strong format and it can resonate so well around the world, we're already discussing several remakes in Europe and in the US, which we're very, very excited about, and hopefully aiming to sell the tape as well, as is.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, good luck with that
Thank you.
and everything else at the market. So just coming back to what we were talking about earlier, and without going into any of the political detail of everything that's happened in Israel over the past year or so, how difficult has it been for you as a business, working internationally? How has it affected you, the political situation?
I think, we can talk about this for hours, but I think for the first time in my professional life, the personal and the professional just meshed together in this year. I mean, it was very hard to work as usual and not have the personal side get involved. Because, as an international distribution company, we are with our faces from Israel outside. We are in touch with everyone around the world, from people in Korea and India and New Zealand through Eastern Europe and South America and all over the place. And, obviously most of these people are amazing human beings, very intelligent, well-educated people. But now and again, you will find that some of them have different opinions than you about the situation, and it will affect the business. And they will say, maybe not in so many words, that this is not the right time for Israeli content to travel. And let's put a pin in it and discuss it when times are a little bit better. And it's very hard not to take these things personal. And I know that's not against me, Sharon, specifically, because obviously we've had a relationship for many, many years. But it's hard, and the personal and the professional kind of got mixed up. And we feel that we're responsible in many ways to continue to push forward our business. We also represent content from October 7th. One of our strongest documentaries is called #Nova, and it shows minute to minute the events of what happened to the Nova Festival goers on that day. Very hard footage to watch, but it shows this is part of history. This is taking the front row in history and seeing what happened on that day. It's not AI, it hasn't been edited, it's just the raw footage. And it's very difficult to watch. It's been shot from their camera phones while they were at the party, from the moments that they were getting dressed and ready to go out and have a fun time, to the moment that these things started to happen, and then also from the camera footage of the Hamas terrorists. So you see both sides of how this day kind of turned out to be, and the disaster that is unfolding right in front of your eyes, as if you're in the front seat of this catastrophe right then and there. And we're representing this documentary. Now, it's not about selling or being commercial about it. It's just the importance of getting this documentary out to as many people as possible. And we have a lot of great people around the world that are helping us with that, and we're holding a lot of screening events. So yeah, this is my job, but it's also a mission for us that, the entire Yes Studios team is behind it. And yes, we have very difficult days where we hear different comments about the situation, and we try to keep it very, very professional. The flip side of it is that, all these sleepless nights, we're fortunate enough to work in an industry that we really love. That's pretty much working 24/7. There's always someone to be in touch with. If it's in LA or if it's in Australia, you have different the time differences, and you kind of put yourself to work a lot in order to keep your mind off the reality that you're living right now. And at times you can put a humorous spin on it, and some dark humor doesn't hurt once in a while. But we went through a lot on a personal level.
Yeah,
and we have soldiers in the army. My son was in Gaza, so obviously it's very hard to continue to function normally when you have this worry. And on the other hand, I'm blessed to be able to work with something that can keep my mind off it and read scripts and travel.
Yeah.
And to take a breath of fresh air now and again.
Yeah.
And I'm a very optimistic person, and I think that it may become a little bit worse before it gets better, but it will get better.
Yeah, well, here's hoping for a peaceful resolution to everything that's happening in Israel.
It's about time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So finally, Sharon, tell us about what's next then for Yes Studios. I mean, obviously you're pitching new projects here. We heard about those earlier on. What's next in the next year or so, do you think, for the business?
I mean, a lot of the projects that we were developing and that we were producing we had to put them on hold because of the situation, and now we're starting to go back to kind of like business as usual. So there are a lot of things in the pipeline that we're super excited about that we're going to launch in 2025. some returning shows. We're working on season 2 of Bloody Murray. We're working on season 3 of The Chef. We're working, obviously, on season 5 of Fauda. And more exciting news to follow on that as well. And then we have a lot of new projects that we're doing in development with different companies as co-productions, or, you know, productions that we're financing completely on our own. We have dark comedies coming. We have a great YA series, futuristic series that's coming very soon. So we have our slate quite full for 2025. We look forward to traveling more and more. You know, we're going to be at Content London. We're going to be at Series Mania. We're going to be at all the festivals. So we're very excited about a lot of new things that are coming up. And a lot of them do have the international potential. So I feel that, you know, if it's not our time to sell Israeli tapes right now, we'll sell formats and we'll get people to come and invest, because the storytelling is very strong in Israel. People know how to tell great stories. I think maybe it's because where we're living, maybe it's the geography, maybe it's our history. But, you know, you live for today. And from that, your imagination just goes wild. And a lot of great stories come even from real life, you know, every day.
Yeah.
So,
well, I wish you all the very best.
thank you.
And have a great market.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Justin.
Now, of course, MIPCom is a major launch platform for new TV shows as the world's biggest distributors vie for the attention of TV buyers from the hundreds of countries attending the market. One of the leading distribution companies is ITV Studios, and I caught up with EVP of Global Content, Julie Meldal-Johnson, to hear about their brand new slate for MIP24.